When we were kids, nursery rhymes felt harmless, catchy tunes, cute little stories, the kind of stuff you would sing without thinking twice. But here's the thing, a lot of those innocent-sounding rhymes were not made for children at all. Behind the playful lyrics and sing-song rhythm, many of them hide stories about disease, death, royal scandals, and even execution. Back then, people used rhymes as a way to talk about things they could not say openly, plagues that wiped out cities, cruel rulers, or tragedies too dark to speak of directly. So in this video, we're looking into 10 well-known nursery rhymes, the ones you probably grew up singing, and revealing the disturbing truths behind them. Some of these origins are backed by history, others are just theories. But either way, after this, you'll probably never hear your favorite childhood songs the same way again. So sit back and enjoy as we dive in. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Ring Around the Rosie. Most of us grew up singing Ring Around the Rosie without giving it a second thought. It sounds cheerful and innocent, but for years, people have claimed it's actually about something much darker, the Great Plague that swept through London. According to that theory, the roses were the red rashes people got from the illness, the posies were flowers carried to ward off the bad smell and disease, a tissue meant sneezing, and when everyone fell down, that was said to represent death. But here's the twist. Historians and folklorists do not really buy that explanation. The plague theory only became popular around the mid-1900s, and there is no real evidence for it. In fact, older versions of the rhyme do not always include sneezing or even falling down. Some versions end with everyone getting back up again, not exactly how you would symbolize death. Many early forms of the rhyme were more like a playful circle game than a grim warning. Kids would dance around in a ring, then suddenly bow, curtsy, or drop to the ground. The last one to do it might have to hug or kiss another player. In those versions, the roses and posies were not symbols of sickness, but of love, beauty, and joy, like flowers usually are in traditional songs. It also turns out that Ring Around the Rosie shows up all over Europe, in Germany, Switzerland, and Italy, long before it appeared in English records. The first time anyone linked it to disease or death was not until after World War II, when people started reinterpreting old rhymes in darker ways. At the end of the day, there's just no real proof. If it truly had been inspired by the events of 1665, we would expect to find something like maybe a diary, a letter, or a record describing kids singing about roses or mocking the sickness in some way. But despite detailed accounts from people who actually lived through the Great Plague, nothing like that has ever turned up. Whoever first claimed that link clearly did not have any historical source to back it up. Yet the theory somehow caught on and only grew stronger as time went on. During the mid-1900s, the story had taken on a life of its own. Folklorists even have a name for this kind of thing, metafolklore, which basically means folklore about folklore. There are now several versions of the story floating around. Some say the rhyme came from London during the Great Plague of 1665. Others claim it traces back to the Black Death of the 1300s. A few even insist it started in Eyam, a small English village famously hit by plague, where, according to one version, children sang it while dancing around the victims. Those who believe the rhyme refers to the pneumonic plague say the ring describes a red rash on the skin, while others who link it to the bubonic plague think it refers to a swollen red area around a black sore or bump. Basically, people keep reshaping the story to fit whatever version sounds most convincing. Mary, Mary, quite contrary. Mary, Mary, quite contrary might sound like just another sweet old rhyme, but there are some pretty dark theories about it. On the surface, it's about a woman tending her garden, but some say it's really packed with hidden meanings from history and religion. One popular idea is that the rhyme is a Catholic allegory. In that version, Mary refers to the Virgin Mary. The silver bells are the small church bells used during Mass. The cockle shells represent the badges worn by pilgrims traveling to the shrine of St. James in Spain, and the pretty maids all in a row symbolize nuns. But others believe the rhyme is actually about one of two famous queens, Mary Queen of Scots or Mary the First of England, better known as Bloody Mary. For Mary Queen of Scots, the rhyme is often seen as a sad reflection of her life. The silver bells and cockle shells were said to be decorations on a dress given to her by her first husband, the Dauphin of France, who died young, leaving her a widow. The pretty maids might refer to her 4 loyal companions, Edwards, known as the Four Marys: Mary Seton, Mary Fleming, Mary Beaton, and Mary Livingston, who stayed with her through much of her troubled life. Then there is the darker version, the one tied to Mary I, or Bloody Mary. She was a fierce Catholic queen who earned her nickname after burning hundreds of Protestants at the stake. In this version, Mary quite contrary mocks her strict and cruel rule. The silver bells are said to be thumbscrews used for torture, the cockleshells were devices said to inflict pain, and the pretty maids all in a row are thought to symbolize executions, possibly referring to the Halifax gibbet, an early form of the guillotine nicknamed the Maiden. Even the line, "How does your garden grow?" takes on a grim twist. Some say it's a jab at her inability to have children, while others think it's a morbid reference to cemeteries, suggesting that her garden grew with the bodies of those she executed. Baa Baa Black Sheep. Next up, we have Baa Baa Black Sheep. Some people once believed it had links to slavery, but most historians agree that that's not the case. The rhyme mostly goes back to the wool tax of the 13th century, during the reign of King Edward I. Back then, wool was one of England's biggest exports, and the king introduced a heavy tax on it. Every sack of wool had to be divided 3 ways, one part for the king, one for the church, and one for the farmer. That meant the poor shepherd boys, who actually did all the work, were left with nothing. The original version of the rhyme even ended with the line, "and none for the little boy who cries down the lane," which makes it sound a lot more tragic than the version we sing today. The black sheep might have been more than just a reference to color. In Old English culture, black often symbolized bad luck or rebellion, so the black sheep could represent a struggling farmer weighed down by taxes, or even someone who dared to push back against the king's rule. Because black sheep's wool could not be dyed and sold for as much money, these animals were seen as unlucky. Goosey Goosey Gander. Goosey Goosey Gander has a surprisingly grim backstory that goes way beyond wandering geese. The rhyme was first written down in 1784 by Gammer Gurton in a collection called the Nursery Parnassus, but most historians think it is actually much older, possibly from the 1500s, during the reign of King Henry VIII. Back then, England was in the middle of huge religious changes, and it's believed that the rhyme was a piece of Protestant propaganda aimed against the Catholic Church. But what really makes this rhyme unsettling are the lines that go, "There I met an old man who would not say his prayers, so I took him by his left leg and threw him down the stairs." Many believe the old man in the rhyme represents a Catholic priest who refused to say Protestant prayers after Catholicism was banned. During that time, Catholic priests had to hide in secret rooms, often called priest holes, inside people's homes to avoid being caught. The ladies' chamber could have been one of those hiding spots. So in this version, the rhyme paints a picture of someone finding one of these priests and violently dragging him out, which gives the innocent-sounding song a much darker twist. Interestingly, the earliest printed versions did not even include the throw him down the stairs line. Folklore experts later suggested that our modern version might actually be a blend of 2 old rhymes, one about geese and another about a crane fly that ends up with the same violent image. Jack and Jill. Almost everyone knows the story of Jack and Jill, the two who went up the hill, and well, things didn't end too well. One of the most popular theories ties the rhyme to the French Revolution. In this version, Jack stands for King Louis XVI, and Jill represents Queen Marie Antoinette. The hill is said to symbolize the steps to the guillotine, where both the king and queen were executed in 1793. When the rhyme says, "Jack fell down and broke his crown," it's thought to describe the king's beheading, and Jill came tumbling after refers to the queen's fate shortly after. Marie Antoinette, of course, is remembered for that infamous quote, "Let them eat cake," said to show how unaware she was of the suffering of France's starving poor. Whether or not she actually said it, the story captured her image as a queen completely cut off from reality. But there's another, much older English theory. Some historians believe Jack and Jill is about King Charles I and his money troubles with Parliament in the 1600s. When Parliament refused to raise taxes, the king came up with a sneaky workaround. He reduced the size of certain liquid measures, like the jack, a quarter pint, payment and the Jill, but kept the same tax. That way, people paid the same amount for less. Jack fell down and broke his crown could mean the Jack measure was reduced, along with the little crown marking on it. And since the Jill was based on the Jack, it came tumbling after. Then there is the third, more romantic and tragic interpretation. Some believe the rhyme tells the story of a young couple who used to meet secretly on a hill. When Jill became pregnant, Jack died, either from a fall or an accident, and Jill later died in childbirth, tumbling after him. Three Blind Mice. No one really knows who wrote the nursery rhyme Three Blind Mice, but it was first printed in 1609. Many believe the Three Blind Mice were actually three Protestant men accused of plotting against Queen Mary I, the same queen history remembers as Bloody Mary. She earned that name for her brutal persecution of Protestants, often burning them alive as she tried to bring England back to Catholicism. Those three men, Ridley, Latimer, and Cranmer, were real people, better known as the Oxford Martyrs. They were not actually blind. The blindness referring to her is their Protestant faith and rejection of Catholic teachings. The rhyme's dark humor may have been inspired by their tragic fate. The three bishops were tried for heresy and burned at the stake in Oxford. Ridley and Latimer were executed on October 16, 1555, and Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was also executed about 5 months later. Their trials took place at the University Church of St. Mary, and their deaths happened just outside of Oxford's city walls. Even though these events happened about 50 years before the rhyme appeared in print, it's possible that the story was passed down by word of mouth through generations. Whether that's true or not, the idea that a simple children's rhyme might hide such a dark piece of history makes it even more fascinating. London Bridge is falling down. Next, let us move on to London Bridge is falling down. One theory says that London Bridge is falling down might go all the way back to 1014, when King Olaf II of Norway supposedly destroyed the bridge during an attack on London. A Norse saga called Heimskringla even includes a verse that roughly translates to London Bridge is broken down, gold is won, and bright renown. But over time, historians have questioned that translation, so other theories have come into play. The simplest explanation is that the song is about the bridge literally falling apart over the years. The old London Bridge went through a lot. It was damaged by ice in 1281, and it even caught fire during the Great Fire of London in 1666. Some people think the rhyme was just poking fun at how badly it was built, needing constant repairs because of poor craftsmanship and weak materials. But then there is a darker theory. British folklorists Iona and Peter Opie suggested the song might actually refer to human sacrifice, or an old punishment called immurement, where someone was sealed inside a wall or structure and left to die, specifically children being buried alive in the bridge's foundations to keep it from collapsing. Some old versions of the rhyme even include the line, "Take the key and lock her up," which would talk about this idea. The belief back then was that these buried people would protect the bridge from falling apart. People in those times believed that a building would collapse unless a life was built into its walls. And creepily enough, human bones were found under the bridge during excavation work near the London Dungeon in 2007. Then there's the mystery of the Fair Lady. Some think that she could be the Virgin Mary, believed to have protected London from the Vikings during the 1014 attack, while others say she might be Matilda of Scotland, the queen who ordered several bridges to be built in the 1100s. Humpty Dumpty. We all know Humpty Dumpty as that poor egg who took a nasty fall. But here's the thing, the original Humpty Dumpty was not an egg at all. He was most likely a cannon. The idea of Humpty as a big talking egg actually came later thanks to Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, published in 1871. In one chapter, Alice meets him for the first time, and Carroll describes him as an egg. Back in the 1600s, during the English Civil War, Humpty Dumpty was actually the nickname for a cannon used by the Royalist Army. In June 1648, this cannon sat proudly on the walls of Colchester, defending the city from Parliament's forces. But when enemy fire damaged the wall beneath it, the cannon came crashing down, literally having a great fall. but when they tried to lift it back up, all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put it together again. But there is another theory that ties the rhyme to King Richard III. He ruled England briefly between 1483 and 1485 and was known for having a hunchback. His horse, interestingly enough, was called Wall. So when the rhyme says Humpty Dumpty fell off a wall, some think it's a cheeky reference to Richard falling off his horse at the Battle of Bosworth Field, the same battle where he lost both his crown and his life. His soldiers could not save him that day either. There's also a possible link to old slang from the 1600s and 1700s. Back then, Humpty Dumpty was actually the name of a drink made by mixing brandy and ale. On top of that, the term was sometimes used as a rude nickname for short or clumsy people. So before the nursery rhyme became popular in its modern form, Humpty Dumpty might have been a cheeky or mocking term used to describe someone who was drunk or acting foolish. Here we go round the mulberry bush. The nursery rhyme Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush is said to have started right inside Wakefield Prison, and surprisingly, there is some truth behind that claim. The prison itself dates back to 1595, when it was just a small detention house meant to hold prisoners until punishment was decided. And there really was a mulberry tree in the prison grounds for over 400 years, which makes this story pretty believable. According to historian R.S. Duncan, who was once the governor of Wakefield Prison, the rhyme was created by female prisoners who used to walk around the tree during their daily exercise. They might have made up the song to entertain their children while doing so. Back then, the prison system was built by men, for men, and the setup for women was more of an afterthought. Instead of hard labor, female inmates went through a few stages meant to reform them: months of isolation, group work, and finally, transfer to a woman-only facility. Because some women were pregnant or had babies, special areas like nurseries and maternity wards had to be made. Even things like diet and exercise rules were changed to fit their needs. In 2016, the same old mulberry tree was actually nominated for the Tree of the Year award. It didn't win, and sadly, the ancient tree died in 2017 and had to be removed. The prison's governor back then, Tom Wheatley, mentioned that the tree was a part of the prisoners' daily routine for generations, something everyone noticed when it was gone. Luckily, the story didn't end there. A former prison warden had taken a cutting from the tree back in the 1980s and grown a new one. His widow donated a piece from that tree to the prison. While this prison story fits nicely, there is another theory too. Some say the rhyme was inspired by Britain's failed attempt to compete with China's silk industry. Silkworms eat mulberry leaves, so in the 18th and 19th centuries, Britain tried growing mulberry trees to start its own silk trade. Unfortunately, the cold weather was not kind to the trees or the worms, and the idea didn't work out. Who Killed Cock Robin? Even though the first written version of Who Killed Cock Robin appeared in 1744, there's a good chance the story itself is much older. In fact, a stained glass window from the 1400s in Buckland Rectory, Gloucestershire, shows a robin being shot with an arrow, which might be an early version of the same story. Some historians think the rhyme could be inspired by an Old Norse myth about the death of Balder, the god of summer sunlight, who was killed by his blind brother Hoder under the trickster god Loki's influence. Others believe the cock robin in the rhyme could be connected to Robin Hood, since after his death, many characters in the stories offer to help him, similar to how the animals in the rhyme each volunteer for different roles. Still, there's not much direct proof of this link beyond the shared name. Interestingly, in one version of the Robin Hood legend, he's betrayed and killed by a nun who drains his blood, which does sound oddly similar to the tone of the rhyme. Another theory suggests the rhyme refers to the death of King William II, also called William Rufus, who was killed by an arrow while hunting in the New Forest back in 1100. Some people think that Cock Robin is a parody of his death because Rufus means red. Another idea is that the rhyme was actually a political joke about the fall of Robert Walpole's government in 1742 because Robin is a nickname for Robert, and the timing of when the rhyme first appeared seems to match this incident. At the end of the day, none of these theories can be proven. As nursery rhyme researcher Peter Opie once suggested, Who Killed Cock Robin might have been an older song that people simply adapted to fit different stories or political events over time. Marvelous verdict. Well, with that, we come to the end of yet another fun video. These 10 nursery rhymes definitely don't sound so innocent anymore, right? But what do you guys think? Were these rhymes really messages from history, or are we just reading too much into them? Do you believe people back then really used children's songs to talk about dark events? Are there any more rhymes with interesting stories you're aware of that we left out here? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Thanks for watching. Until next time.